there is interpersonal, which includes every basically relationship that we create in our lives, without which life would be not possible. Because I love the saying, but I think Thomas Merton says it, and that's the title of his book. Nobody's an island, but I think that term has been coined, or that sentence was first said some in middle centuries.
Yeah,
a long time ago. But indeed, nobody's an island, and if we focusing on the internal process, at least that's my realization. It's to be able to include others into this. To be better part of the community, to be better part of the society, to be better father, better mother, and perform or do our function as a valid member of society. And then so that's the interpersonal, which again many people think about mindfulness. What do you mean? I sit by myself in the cushion, so that has nothing to do with how I interact with other people. But I believe that nothing could be further from the truth, because that has everything to do how you interact with other people, right?
Yeah, Tommy, how do you tell that story that the stories that everyone else tells themselves, that that just sitting on a cushion for 20 minutes twice a day or 30 minutes twice a day, whatever the period, then how you can clearly articulate that is going to connect to relationships with your kids, performance and productivity, self-awareness, self-regulation, by that sitting in that practice, provided that it's the right practice. How do you tell that story?
Well, everything starts with awareness. So again, I'm going to come back to that framework of 6 pillars, because I really like it as a structure. It comes to awareness of there's nothing without awareness. So imagine if you have even the best life,
yep,
and everything you can imagine, but you're not aware.
Yep.
That doesn't matter what you've got. And you won't be aware of all those precious and treasures that are around you or within you, right? So within the framework of mindfulness, what you practice is how I see it. It's practice your ability to execute your awareness, or to apply your awareness consciously. Okay. And how it works, the more, and again, research clearly shows that, again, using the title of that Harvard research, wandering mind, it's unhappy mind.
Yep.
So if your mind wanders, if you are not aware, your chances of being unhappy are much greater. And how you react to unhappiness, if you think to yourself, how do you feel when you're unhappy? Do you really feel like going to the party and interacting with people and I don't know, talking to friends? I guess not. We actually feel, I want to be by myself. I don't want to talk to anyone. You feel more isolated and alienated. On the contrary, when you're conscious, it doesn't matter what you do, right? You can brush your teeth or you can polish your shoes, but once you pay attention to it, and again, science is very clear about it, your chances of feeling fulfilled and happy are much greater. And when you're in that zone of, I call it the zone, right? But it basically, when you feel, and again, it's difficult to describe, but if you have that sense of fulfillment and happiness, then you don't need to try to interact with other people. This interaction flows out of you because it's in that state of mind, it's more natural. Right?
Yeah.
I feel happy. Imagine yourself, you just achieved something and you're very happy about it. And you come out of the, conference room, you just get a raise or get a promotion. And you're very, very happy. And how you feel? Do you feel like, oh no, I want to lock myself in my office and celebrate by myself? No, you want to grab your friends, you want to grab family, you want to share with people. Because that's how happy state manifests itself. It's you naturally start connecting and interconnecting with others. So in a sense, for me personally, every time I find myself a bit of, I'd rather stay at home, this is a red light for me that what is going on with my internal process? Where does it come from? right? And I start being mindful about what is going on internally with me. And very, very frequently, I find that, oh, well, there's some dissatisfaction. I'm fixating on some negative emotions. So there's a message behind it, and that's great, right? And that's what mindfulness to me is. It's not just focusing on the positive and ignoring all the negative. It's the recognition of the emotional states in all the shapes and forms they come, and then taking the message that that emotion has to offer. And think, that's the beauty.
Yeah, and I think, Tomek, on that, you're exactly right, that mindfulness and meditation doesn't mean that the negative thoughts and the fears and the judgments just go away forever and they never come back. It's almost that you build an awareness or a better relationship with them. So when they do come back, you can meet them kindly and you can talk to them, and then they no longer have the power or the hook on you anymore, because you're aware of them and you've almost made peace with those feelings, that they're real and they happen, but they don't drag you to past or they don't drag you to future. You just meet them where they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would even take it even further and say that you may, I'm not saying I do it all the time and I'm successful with that approach all the time, but you can take those emotions that we perceive as negative and take it to your advantage.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, every emotional state, it's a representation of something.
Yep.
Emotions do not come from a void. They usually, I love this path described by as a famous psychiatrist, actually Australian psychiatrist, that, I'm paraphrasing it, every emotional state is caused by experience, and we have always a choice to choose our response, and in that choice lies our freedom and our growth. Yeah. It's a famous Australian.
Yeah, so I think that was by Viktor Frankl, who was
exactly
in
Viktor
the concentration camps. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm paraphrasing this. I'm paraphrasing is he obviously uses that phrase much more in much more elegant way, but the gist of it is that what we perceive as negative or unpleasant has as much value as the positive.
Yeah.
No, if we allow that message to come across, and to give you a very tangible example of it is, when now every time I feel upset or angry, I try to feel translated what it really means.
Yep.
And very frequently, what I find is that I'm dissatisfied with a certain situation because I care too much to let things be as they are or accept the status quo. And if you, again, retell that story of what you're experiencing as anger, as a tension in your body, in that way that you care, right? Experiencing because you care, that changes that's the paradigm shift, right?
Yeah.
You no longer are identified with the emotion of anxiety, of anger, or any strong emotion. You simply putting humanity into it in a way that help you to understand yourself better and to act more skillfully, which is the most important thing, right? That's what Viktor Frankl says. That's what our growth is, right? That's where you're growing versus just putting yourself in the hole where you stay and on the cave where you want to stay and not to talk to anyone.
Well, yeah, you get the choice. And you still might want to react and yell or haul someone over the coals. That's fine, but you
absolutely,
you
yes.
choose the response. You don't, so it's a response as opposed to just a reaction or an unconscious reaction, which then you regret later because you didn't have the space to choose. And I'm with you, Tomek. I definitely, I've got 5 kids, so when I start to get really frustrated and for whatever reason, I'll generally take a breath and just ask myself the question of what am I attaching to? Like, what am I attached to that's causing me to feel this way? Because generally for me, I'm attached. So if we've got to be at somewhere at 10 o'clock, I'm attached to that time of being there on time. And the frustration is that the kids are still playing and not getting dressed. It's not them that's causing me to get frustrated. It's my attachment to the time of wanting to be there at 10 o'clock that's then causing me the suffering, because I've made that commitment and I'm hooked on that being the time. So once I can let that go and go, well, it's 10:30 and no one's actually going to really care, and I'll probably get the kids dressed quicker if I'm a bit less, negative and reactive, then this is all going to work out a lot better. So that's my little bit that I try to always do, because generally for me it comes back to an attachment to something, a real fixed belief on this is how it has to be and I can't see it through another lens.
That is very true, and according to Tom Campbell, who's a nuclear physicist but also a consciousness explorer, the close ones, which is our family, kids, and wives and partners, these are people that from whom we learn the most. They give us the biggest challenge and the biggest ability to grow. And on that topic, and once for a moment, coming back to your initial question of mindfulness and reactivity, in a very tangible way, mindfulness is a tool to increase that space between your emotional state between the experience and your response. So imagine people who are untrained, right, or unskillfully react to certain situations, right? The ability to create that space between the experience and the response is very minimal or does not exist, and it happens automatically.
Yep.
Again, that's where negativity bias kicks in. However, practicing being on that meditation cushion, and I call it training your cognitive fitness. What cognitive fitness is to me is exactly the volume of that space.
Yeah. Okay.
How much you give yourself, how much space you give yourself between you jumping to the conclusion.
Yep.
And again, many people having that choice, they would choose correctly. The problem is, because of that space for so many of us, because we are untrained and we react unskillfully, the space is so limited that we don't make any choices. We simply react. And that's what you're referring to, I believe, when the situation happens.
Yep.
You having your practice and repeating it, like you go in a gym and you do repetition. You're the same, you hardly ever get it right at the first time, but by repetition and interacting with your kids on a daily basis, you learn how to respond skillfully, respond mindfully. And that's what mindfulness is, indeed, right? It's not how much you can, I love people who say, I cannot make my mind blank.
Yep.
And I said, my goodness, there's not a single person that can do that, because you were just denied 200 million years of evolution was working so hard for our minds to actually be able to think and to process information. And now you want to just make it blank? That's just not going to happen. That'll be actually silly. I
love the terminology that you use, Tomek, which I think's spot on, is a skillful response. Because especially in leadership and parenting, like in relationships, that's what you're wanting. Is you're wanting a skillful response. Like you're wanting a response that works, and the awareness that you've got that works for the situation, and you're skillful. Not just, and that I feel like what you're saying in that it's not a blanket response every single time. The response has to change depending on the environment and the person. And when you've got the self-awareness and the awareness of others, that you can respond in a skillful way to get a good outcome to that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's nicely put, and I think really important. How much work have you done with leadership mindful leadership, which is again something that's now becoming more popular, is around that the ability that to be more mindful and to be skillful at the practice actually then blends into good leadership, blends